All right.
Welcome back to another episode of Cerebral Pundits. You have myself, Mr. Casey Bluefield, joined by my co-host. You got the new label down there, Avita.
Yes.
Avita, what's going on? How we doing?
Doing well. Yeah, I decided to adopt it. I figured it was time. Why not, you know?
No, it's good. Looks good. We are also joined by my other little co-host. This is
Yeah,
my son Miles. So he will be in
that's
and
for
out
sure.
of the episode today, making a whole bunch of noise. But this is just part of it, right? This is just part of parenthood. This is part of the journey, and yeah,
Yeah,
kind of is what it is.
absolutely.
So Vita, what are we talking about today? Actually, no. Before that, what do you think about our last episode? We didn't really get to rap too much about that. What are your thoughts on the last one?
I mean, I love everything we pick, obviously, because I'm like, I think we're very intentional about what we choose, right? It's going to have some sort of message or lesson or provoke different thoughts or habits. So, yeah, I'm always going to be on board with it. Did you have any
Yeah,
special takeaways or thoughts on it?
no, it was especially after like doing the interview and then we talked a little bit about money. Like it was just I just love the wide range of selections. Thank you, Mouse. I
Yeah.
love the wide range of selections that we've been talking about. Um, and honestly, I just like where it's headed. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was just thinking like since the last time we talked, we've had an election. So for those that don't know, so we're in November of 2024. We've had election, so we've had a lot of stuff kind of going on, and I feel like what
Yeah.
we're doing, well, I feel like what we're doing is right on par. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the fun in this is that we're hitting different topics, ideas, people. So I think it's gonna at some point we'll touch on something for everybody, hopefully.
no, absolutely. What are we talking about today?
Today's a good one, you guys. I'm excited. So I've actually got to listen to Dan Martell on a live webinar recently, but today we actually got to review one of his, I guess I don't know if you'd say it's a podcast or TED Talk or how you would word that, but um, it was a talk that he did, and he specifically went over goals and different ideas with business, and was taking Q&A from people, and so we get to learn live with his audience, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Not absolutely. So his book. Sorry, my camera's kind of going in now. I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out. His book called "Buy Back Our Time" is actually what
Mhm.
one of my pause 1 second.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to do some editing today. But his book, "Buy Back Our Time," is actually like one of my favorite books. It's a book that I highly recommend to quite a few people.
Yeah.
He talks about the processes and systems and just the ability to be able to like you know build a life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think in addition to systems and processes, he also adds in there, obviously the idea of how to buy back your time, which I also think involves the people side of it, and who can you bring in or how can you delegate so that you make the most of the time you have and provide the most value in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's interesting because I feel like when I first started this journey, like his book was like one of the books I was like, okay, like this was the great book to kind of kick it off. And then as we
Mhm.
kind of move forward and like into he has so much material on the internet, but like just listening to, this session that we're actually going to kind of get into, like
Yeah.
I felt like it's the perfect time for me to kind of hear that. I think you kind of expressed some of the same things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying that this couldn't have come at a better time. I'm like everything in recent between coaching, books, everything else, I've been really diving deep into goals, goal setting, vision casting, the whole deal. And so this was right on par with that.
Awesome. Let's get it. As my son dances to Sesame Street over here, as he's going crazy. So let's kind of get into it. So one of the
Yeah.
key takeaways that I love from this was when he talked about uh, different approaches for different stages. So I think that's kind of summed it up for me as far as just everything. So this season of life is going to be a different approach. I'm going to be in a different stage
Yeah.
than what I've been in the past. So when you hear that different approaches for different stages, like what's your initial thoughts that kind of come to mind?
Yeah. I think it definitely resonates with me because I think I am a big advocate, and especially lately, of trying to recognize, and I think he was actually the one that said, like, you can't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 72, if you will,
So
and that
true.
there's whatever, this, it's not appropriate, but like, 100 ways to skin a cat or whatever. It's like there's so many different ways that you could achieve the same goal, or your goals might be different than somebody else's, or your circumstances may be different, and like that is okay, and so different level, different things, and being able to identify where you're at and then trying to find the resources or appropriate actions to match that, I think is huge.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think right now, like the season I'm in, it's definitely different than anything I've experienced, right? So in the past, like it's been like, okay, very work centric, very goal focused.
Yeah.
Right now it's very family dominant.
Hmm.
And I think there's challenges with that. Like you could, lose your identity in some aspects. You feel like sometimes like you are slower to achieving some of the things that you want to accomplish. But I think that that's just kind of part of the journey, and it's not necessarily the destination. It's just the next step per se in the journey. So
Absolutely.
um he talked about, oh, he mentioned something like when he was talking about like different stages, so forming like different teams for different stages. And I thought that
Hmm.
was interesting. I thought that was interesting too, because I felt like there's a lot of truth to that, in a sense of like, okay, the same team that you are with right now, like as you move forward into different aspects, it
Yeah.
might not need to be the exact same team for that next journey. And he kind
Yeah.
of gave some examples for that. I thought that was actually really interesting.
Yeah, I think the one example he gave was like if you're, in a Slack channel and you're the new person, and he's like, there's one project or channel you're added to, and then they're like, oh, what is this acronym or thing over here? And they're like, oh, no, 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 that's not us. And they're like, oh, is that not our company? And he's like, well, it is, but that's, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. It's fine. It's us, but it's not us. Just a thing. Don't worry about it. And like how then the feedback could come back to your company later of, I'm confused or I'm lost. I don't really get what we're doing. And it's like, it just puts it into perspective of, of course, he also mentions too, like if you have the means to create another team, and if not, sometimes there's, overlap or situations where you might have to, have one department run two different projects or companies or whatever. But, as you can build that out, to keep in mind, ideally keep those things separate so they can function in their own ecosystem, if you will.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to be said about like new energy for new projects, right? So you need to make sure that as you move into something new, like you have the correct and proper energy to kind of help guide you through that process. So
Yeah.
let's get into a section here. So let me see real fast. Let me share my screen and we're gonna get into this. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's listen to a couple things he has to say.
That we can do to compete, period, doesn't matter who you are, is have alignment. Okay, so everybody should write down that. Okay, alignment equals acceleration. Alignment equals acceleration. So if I have the opportunity, I'm going to build a separate team and I'm going to keep them separate, even if it's one person. I'm going to try to create their own Slack channels and what's not. And then I, as the CEO or the leader, will then look at my calendar and choose the themes in the week where I focus on those different businesses. I like to structure it that way, because that way, if it's a Monday and I get an email and it's regarding the other business, I know that I have Thursday afternoons and Tuesday afternoons to work on it. I'll tell the person, are you free Tuesday at 3 o'clock or Thursday at 3 o'clock? See the difference?
So I really like that, because I felt like
Yeah.
I talked to people who have done that, and they feel like mentally like there's so much clarity. And I feel like as I continue to move forward and progress and whatnot, like I think that's something I want to adopt. That like
Yeah.
that notion of like you have multiple businesses or multiple avenues, and you dedicate specific days to kind of focus on that. I think there's some mental clarity that kind of comes along with that too. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I feel like it goes along too with, I don't know if you do any version of this, but like time blocking.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, I've heard the concept, but I think when he described that and how, he looks at it and he's not going to feel that pressure to, oh, they email me on Monday, I better get back. And like, oh, I have to hop on a call today or schedule a Zoom. It was like, no, I think it was, the fact that it's set up, that you have time set aside. And then that way, if you follow through, not letting that pressure cave in on you and just going, okay, this is a very simple, we just move it to this bucket, A or B. And then it's just like, cool, that's off your plate for today until that time comes up so that you're able to handle however many businesses or projects maybe you have. So I thought that was really a good example.
No, I love that. I feel like that's a really good nugget. He also mentions alignment equals acceleration. I thought that was a great, like he dropped some gems in this thing. Would you say like he dropped some
So
really
good.
good gems?
Yeah.
Alignment equals acceleration. I was like, that's so good too.
Yeah.
He mentioned one of the things I wanted to talk about. I felt like this would be a great start. Get people's hearts over their hands and get
Yes.
them enrolled in their vision. So my question for you is, do you? Because I feel like you have like the personality to do that. As you're continuing to like, you know, go further along in like your career and ultimately start your own team. I know you're a part of a team now, but at some point start your own team. My
Yeah.
questions for you, like what would be some like your values? Like what are 2 or 3 your values? Because when I think of like heart over hands, I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
But I think that that falls under to me is like the service or like the team oriented umbrella. So what would be some like your values that you would say?
I think for me, it would be really crucial to lead with integrity. I think that's just something that's huge to me. I'm always, you got to do the right thing. And sometimes, it's funny. I had back in the day an interview, and one of the questions they asked me was, what was a time that you did something that was maybe wrong or against the rules? But basically, why did you do it? And share the scenario. And I thought that was such a good question because I think that can show like, and one of my example was I had given a guest a product and it was because they were extremely upset. All the circumstances had leaned into it. I tried to go through the escalation process and ultimately had to make an executive decision. And I did that to keep this person long term, even though technically you can't just be handing stuff out every day. But I never did. I always followed the rules. It was just in that moment. That's how I decided to handle it. Whatever. That was how I assessed it. And so I think that goes to show too, though, it's like, what are you going to do in those tough scenarios to take care of people and to take care of each other in the business? Because it's not always going to be in the handbook. So I feel like integrity is definitely something that I lead with. I like being around people that are going to do right by each other. Deals are going to go south. Businesses are going to go south. Things are going to happen. How do we go from there and how do we navigate it? But yeah, I think probably with that, there's probably a few others. I think probably teamwork is pretty big for me. Like being able to work together. I
Collaboration, teamwork. Yeah.
Great word for it. So I think those would definitely be high on my list. How about for yourself?
Yeah, I think it starts with integrity. I think that's definitely number one. Number two would be striving, continuous education, so continuous growth. So I think that people work harder and more, long when they have something to work towards. You know what I mean? I'm a believer of that. Well, stars. And then the last one, is this collaboration. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think being able to like work with others, like we were, when you think about it, like we come from like a civilization per se of like collaboration. And what happens is over time we tend to move out more and more into like the cities and suburbs, and we kind of start to isolate. So I think
Yeah,
it shows even with work, like we work so much better when there is some form of like collaboration. So those would be my ones.
absolutely. I like those.
So we read a book in the book club a couple months ago called The Mountain Is You. We also read a book called, Comfort Crisis. So when he talks about self-worth, so we're going to hear some section here about self-worth, about 2 minutes long. I felt like this resonated so much because I was like, we just talked about this so much, just like the last couple months.
It's all coming together. I love it.
Yeah, it for sure was. It for sure was. So let's see here. Let's start. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, let's hear what he got to say.
Help provide the frame and context. I believe that our self-worth, which is the number one tool that we have to overcome self-sabotage, is the confidence and the certainty we can accomplish things, right? Whenever we try to do something and it gets hard and then we see ourselves, I don't know about you guys, but I'll see it happen in real time where I'm like being consistent. All of a sudden I start making a series of bad decisions and then I got to reset. Okay. That is self-sabotage. The reason why we have self-sabotage is because we have internal beliefs around our self-worth of what it means to be successful. Let's check this out. Some of you guys, how many of you guys would like to be wealthier? Show of hands. Put your hand up. Like, come on, people. All of you. We all want to be wealthier, okay? Some of you will never achieve that unless you deal with this concept because you have beliefs around what it means to be rich.
Sorry, quick note. Is it ironic that he has the same color shirt as the color of his book? That's not ironic, right? Okay. Yep. Great marketing. Great marketing. Okay, sorry.
And growing up, you've been told rich people steal, rich people are liars, rich people are unhealthy, rich people cheat on their wives, rich people are not happy, rich, whatever it is. And you don't even realize subconsciously it's there. So every time you have a moment of kicking butt and actually becoming wealthy, having these moments, you inadvertently self-sabotage yourself back to what feels safe. So the 1,000-day concept is this philosophy that I have that the work instills the worth. Write it down. Your self-worth comes from keeping the commitments you make to yourself. Those promises in silence that nobody else knows, but you know. You woke up this morning, you said, I'm going to go to the gym. If you don't go to the gym, you've eaten away at your self-confidence. You don't even realize it. It's a tiny little moment at the time. And what happens is instead of positively spiraling up, you're slowly spiraling down. The person that wakes up 30 pounds overweight didn't just magically wake up the next day 30 pounds overweight. Does that make sense?
So good, right? I felt like
Yeah.
when I was going through that, I was just like, this just ties into every. Honestly, I feel like this has been the year of like growth and like a year of like finding self-worth and like building up self-worth. What are your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. It's funny too, because he touches on limiting beliefs. And I was literally just in a women's seminar maybe a week or two ago, and they were talking about that as well. So literally that's why I'm like, everything's mixing, and the books we've read, the podcasts we're listening to, all of it. And yeah, I mean, I think he has a couple of good gems in there. You know, he talks about the 1,000-day discipline.
The 1,000-day rule. Yep.
Yeah. And just the worth is in the work. And
yeah, I feel like the worth instills the worth.
oof.
I feel like that sounds like something Pace would say too. I wonder if you got that from Pace, or I wonder if Pace said something like that. So
it's funny.
The worth instills the worth.
I think his shirt is part of his branding.
For sure it is.
He does that intentionally to start. He always is wearing, I think, some sort of blue shirt. So
yep, I love that. No, this was good. I feel like, again, this is something I'm actively working on. This is something that like collectively, like anybody that I'm a part of, is I try to like instill. I try to instill self-confidence in others, because I feel like if I can instill self-confidence, that would help allow you to like feel, instill your self-worth per se. You know what I mean? Right? Because I can't, like, your self-worth is internal.
Yeah.
Self-confidence is something that could be exuberated externally and externally. So I feel like if I can help out with your confidence over time, like, plant those seeds, maybe that can kind of foster, you to some growth from like a self-worth standpoint.
That's interesting. Oh my goodness. I never thought about it that way.
Yes, really, man, I took so many notes. Like this is just, so the notes that we're kind of talking about today, these are like the modified notes, because I took so many.
Cliff notes.
He talks here, we're gonna get to it right now. He talks about new levels, new devils. So growing up in church, honestly, this is something I've heard so many times, and I felt like this is good. I had to make sure we talked about this because it's so true. Like think about the problems that we're talking about today, like in your life. The problems that are today in your life are things that you might have prayed about a couple months ago, a couple years ago.
Oh,
right now they're here. Now they're problems. Now they're issues. Now they're things that you have to address. But at some point, these are things that you were dreaming about.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is Yeah, this is just right up my alley. So I'm talking a lot because this one definitely hit home on this one. So
Gotcha.
what are your thoughts on that? New levels, new devils. What is it that you're actively like working through right now that you would say, yes, this applies to me too?
Yeah, I mean, I think this can go towards your personal development and business.
Mm-hmm.
Because to your point, it's like you'll strive for something, and it's never promised that, oh, when you make it to this point, suddenly you'll have no issues, no problems, you'll just be great. And I think that's why when we are diving deeper in these things to figure out, what is going to actually give you purpose, what is going to be fulfilling, it's because we already know, or you could see from others or your own experiences that, hey, I think Mel was talking about, like, you write the book. Okay, now what's next?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, or like,
Absolutely.
when you're starting out in your startup, you're chasing the business, and then guess what? You blow up and you're slammed. Oh, shoot. Well, now we're where we wanted to be, but to that point, holy crap, what are we going to do with all these orders or clients or
Mm-hmm.
whatever? So I think if you're able to have something else guiding you in that, that's what will help you maintain throughout, and or if you can continue to grow it, I should say, because there is no, like, if I get here, oh, now we're safe. Like, no, like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now we're just
It's
exchanging it. The headaches are from something different.
it's constantly evolving. So
Yeah.
let's move over to here. Let's hear what he has to say right here.
At every level of expansion, there's a new devil to be dealt with. Write that down. New level, new devil.
Preach.
Write it
Right.
down. New level, new devil. So, congratulations, you've experienced a new level for you. You now know that it is there, that it is emotional. It's not necessarily logical. There's no facts behind it because you don't have proof every time that it could happen. You're worried about the future. The projection of a future that hasn't happened that we worry about is the most fascinating thing in the world. Because in that same breath of you worrying about this potential embarrassment, you could also hold the truth that that will unlock the next level for you to grow. You could also potentially hold the truth that that is your next level for the business to expand. You could hold the truth that in that letting go, the next opportunity for you to add zero to the end of your revenue could happen. Does that make sense? So in the same token and moment that you're worried about it going bad, if you choose, it could go great. Does everybody get this? I hope I'm not losing you, okay? Write this down. Your frequency is what you frequently see.
Oof. That one hit me.
Ooh, that hit. Okay, talk to me. How'd that one hit you?
Because I think it's the same thing. It's that, your vibe attracts your tribe, or your network is your net worth. It's that idea of, and you're aware that, like, I've been on this journey of practicing more gratitude and things of that nature. And I think that is just a different way of saying the same thing, that, like, what you seek, you will find. If you look for everything that's gone wrong or could go wrong, cool, you're going to find it. But if you look for all the possibilities or opportunities, you also might find that instead.
No, yeah, no, you're right. It's there's so many analogies of the same type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I heard it, it was like, ooh, gave me the chills because
Yeah.
probably because like I've heard this type of thing multiple different times, multiple different ways.
Yeah.
And for one, I love like music and I love like punchlines. And to me, this was like a punchline, like
Yeah.
frequency is what you frequency. Yeah, I feel like you can like rap it, you know what I mean? So I thought this one was really cool. And it just kind of goes to show like it kind of goes back to like your circle of people
Mm-hmm.
and just making sure that you are amongst the right people for you at this season in your life. So taking it all the way back to the very, very front, like very, very top, we talked about different approaches, different stages. Like
Yeah.
the people in your life are seasonal as well, right? So some people last multiple different seasons, some people last one season, and it's your job is to maximize those relationships and maximize those opportunities during those given times. So
Yeah.
it just kind of reassured me like, okay, what I'm doing is right and the right people are in my life right now. It just definitely just reassured it.
That's awesome.
I want to get your thoughts on this one. He dropped another gem. He said
Okay.
fear gives bad advice.
Ooh, that's funny.
Let that sink in for a second. Oh, you're back? Okay. Fear gives bad advice.
Our special
Oh,
guest.
yes, he's back and loud.
I feel
So
like
tell me what your thoughts on that is while I put some shoes on.
it almost makes me think of, when they say you can't take advice from somebody that's not in a spot that you want to be. where it's like, you know, I'm trying to think what a good example would be, but it's like, you're not going to go to a baker and ask them how to make it to the NFL. They're probably not going to know. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But yet we listen to our fear and let it push us towards these actions or hold us back. And it's like, that's not logical. Like, has it happened yet? No. Do you, like, can you keep moving? Yeah, but we just let it kind of freeze us or give us all these, you know, it's all the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I don't make it? What if they judge you? What if you're embarrassed? Like, it just, I feel like you can't take that advice.
Yeah, so as I struggle to put kids' shoes on, by the way, anybody that's watching knows the struggle.
It was real.
I think one of our biggest fear, like, is definitely self-sabotage. Like, we self-sabotage in so many different ways. We self-sabotage in a sense of we're fearful of success. And it took me a little while to like really like be able to fully understand what that means as far as like fear of success.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it, like, it's very interesting because there's so many people who do fear that. Like, they're so comfortable in their situation that they fear that if I go too far, might I
Mhm.
be successful, everything changes. And I feel like that's something that is really starting to resonate a little bit more and more with me.
So do you think it's the fear of change the most? Like, when you say fear of success, do you associate that with the fear of change?
So I think with any type of, you know, so here's the thing, like, there's good change and there's bad change, right? I think most of the time, right, when there's bad change, we're more acceptable to it because we feel like, oh, okay, well, you know, it didn't work out. It's okay, I'll figure it out. But what happens is, sorry, what happens is, you silly boy, what happens is when there's positive change, it's a snowball effect because now there has to be more change, right? Because now you're stepping into a different stage, and that's going to be even more change, and that's going to be even more change, right? Versus reversal, when there's negative, it's like, okay, it is what it is. I'll try it again. But you know how that feels already. We don't know how it feels when you continue to achieve success. So
Okay.
that's my thought process on it.
Yeah.
It's so
No,
funny.
that's an interesting perspective.
All right, we have some homework. So let me go to the spot to where it talks about the homework. Let me
Okay.
see. So this is what it's like to have boys. They're just all over the place. All right, so here's our homework. Let's see.
Communicating, creating transformational content. I won't get into the process, but I will say this, okay? If you do not talk to your phone every day, I would say 3 minimum, but let's go 1. I don't want to freak you out. And then post it on Facebook as a story or Instagram as a story or LinkedIn. I don't even know the different places we post it. Then don't spend $1 on another person, a human with a camera or an editor. Just don't do it. You're going to waste your time. Some people are like, oh, I'm down, 10 grand, boom. They hire some agency and then they totally suck. I see it all the time. They think, oh, I'm going to hire people like Sam. People hit us up all the time. I want to hire an agency. We introduce them an agency and then they start working with them and then their content flops. Well, no shit, because you haven't put the reps in. So right off the gate, if you guys are interested in creating content, camera, record yourself, talk to the camera. Like, don't look at the video of you, look at the circle. Hello.
Oh,
Oh my
yo,
God.
I thought that was so funny, like, because I feel like so many people do that. So many people are like, "Hey, this is me." Like, put the cameras up here. Like, even like as I'm talking to you, I got to remind myself I got to look at the camera, right? Like,
That too, because I'm like, okay, sorry, looking up. I'm like,
yeah, but no, I thought this was good. I feel like, granted, I feel like this is something that we're both comfortable doing as far as speaking to the camera, and you know, I'm not sure if we passed it or if it's a little bit further down when he
hmm,
talks about someone asked him a question as far as like,
I
you
was
know,
thinking,
what content or what value do you get back? You know, how do you supposed to know what to share?
mm,
And you know, he talks about the art of like writing a book, and he's like, I'm not a book writer, I'm an editor. And he talked about if there's something that you want to write about, teach it first, and then that way, I know I put it in my notes. Let me not butcher this. Okay, when you're
no,
ready to write, document the focus of what you want to write, then start teaching it. Workshop it, then you can sit down. Then when you sit down, you don't have to write, but you can edit it.
Yes.
It sounds like that registered with you more
The
than me.
wheels.
So what are your
I
thoughts when you hear that?
wheels were turning. I was like, oh, he's got it. Yeah, because I think, well, it can kind of actually go with his social media example as well, right? Because what he's saying is like, no, people I think are going to hear the work. And I know a gentleman ends up also asking in the audience, how much do you spend on this? And, of course he asked the guy because he honestly probably doesn't really know because he's not dealing with that. But they spend, I think it was like 60 grand a month or something like that. And he's like, but I don't want to give you a number because he's like, I don't want you going either A, well, forget it, I can't afford that. Or B, dropping it. And like you said, are you even recording now? And he even asked the guy, do you record at all right now? Anything. He didn't say how much or how free, just do you ever record yourself? And he was like, no. He's like, well, start there. That's free. He's like, that's what I did. I just recorded myself. And then eventually I got there. And I think it's the same concept of like, media. If you're already recording enough of it and putting it out there, you've now shown up enough to have that consistency and get people to acknowledge you that way. Now you also have content for someone to edit if you don't want to do that. You have something to put out there. And I think it was so interesting hearing him say that he takes that. I guess, yeah, this did resonate with me. I'm like, as I'm talking about it. But like, it's crazy because you feel like, oh, how did they write this book? Or how did they do these things? But when you hear this side of it, you're going, you could lean into parts that maybe you enjoy or could push yourself to do and then allow others to take over. And with this, he shares that he's very comfortable speaking and enjoys that side. He doesn't necessarily want to sit there with pen and paper and write out, 500 pages. So it made so much sense to me that like, record what I'm doing. I'll finesse what I'm saying and what I'm teaching based on the reactions of the room and who I'm with or what questions I get asked. And then guess what? Now we have a whole slew of content to know how I speak. You can just edit it to make it more fit, suited to a book or social media or whatever. And now his team has what they need to create, an insane amount of content, products, resources for numerous people.
No, this is good. I think, sorry, I'm blurry for a second. I'm still getting adjusted to this camera. No, but I like that concept and like that idea because I feel like what do you hear most when you talk about thinking about like authors? Like you hear about like writer's block or even musicians,
Yeah.
right? But I think this is I think this is just a good strategy or like almost like skill set that you can adopt. That way you can always maintain creativity because you're just staying true to who you are. And I feel like that's the biggest form of creativity is just selling yourself in a sense of, hey, this is what I do. Like I feel like lifestyle / educational creativity or marketing or I feel like that's the best way to go. So
Absolutely.
no, this is good. Let's hit on. We're gonna hit on. See, I think it's amateur hour. I think he talks a little bit about some amateur hour stuff. Let's see what he got to say.
Love blowing. Not in our house. Get a place. Had to get a studio. Had to build a team. Had to. I always look at it. If you guys want to grow your business, there's 2 places that I'm going to look to see if you guys are serious. 2 places. What do you guys think those are? Calendar and your bank account. So I just looked at my calendar and said, how much time am I committing on a weekly basis to producing content to actually help and impact the world? And how much of my bank account am I deploying to solve that problem and become that person? The answer I wasn't proud of. I was an amateur. I wasn't a pro. Pros don't act like this. Pros have training routines. I'm not an idiot. I do this shit. And that's what shifted in May. I called Sam up. I said, hey, Sam, I got this crazy idea. I think we build a media company, but I need you here. And him and Matisse jumped in his car from the East Coast of Canada and drove straight, right? 52 hours straight. And we have video of all of this with Matisse, who's behind the camera there.
All right, so I wanted to hit on this. Oops, sorry. I wanted to hit on this because I feel like one thing that's mistaken, I feel like that's overlooked is a lot of these times we see these people like on like social media and like I think he references like Alex Formosi in the beginning.
Yeah.
And we think they just turned on the camera, they think they just started. But come to find out these people have been doing this for years. And I think that's why like I put so much like focus on, making sure that we stay consistent, make sure we do this. And you as well. I feel like this is why like we got to make sure we stay this, because it does take time. It does take time. It might not be till episode 70 you know, that someone listens to it, that it's the right person. But at episode 70, everything can change. You just never know, right? So like, I just love this analogy and love like hearing him talk about that.
Well, I think it's the skills you gain in the reps too, right? Like, okay, even if no one watches a single thing you do for the first 70 episodes, to your example, okay, but what are the odds that we're going to do 70 episodes and not learn to communicate a little bit better, learn how to edit maybe better, or we learn something from what we're watching, or, I just feel like there's so much that can come out of it that it's in the reps, and they're talking about, what was it earlier? We said like your worth is instilled in the work. And I feel like that's what this is where it's like, it may work out tomorrow, it may work out in a couple years, but if we keep showing up, there's no way we don't get a better outcome than we're starting with.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's why, and I think that's the cool thing about this. I feel like that's why we're both doing this, right? It's not necessarily for the social media clout or the YouTube clout per se, but it really is to like educate, to discuss, to give back, and then to continue to like perfect our skills. Because there's going to be a time when we were going to be either on stage or in front of a camera, and we're going to have so many reps. So it's going to feel like it's nothing. Like, I mean, to be able to do a podcast with with a kid in your lap, like that's like that's you know what I mean. Like at some point, it'll be like, oh yeah, we recorded episode 8, and I had a kid in my lap, and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So
it'll be no big deal. I know you're juggling a lot. You're doing good.
To your point, just showing up is in and of itself.
Absolutely.
He talks about reach and reputation, and then all of our dreams are on the others. What do you say? All of our dreams are on the other side of where we are. I think that's kind of what he said. Let's see.
I think I took a different portion from that.
Let me see exactly what it was. I have it in my notes here.
Definitely hit me. And
then what hit you?
The reach and reputation.
Yeah, let's talk about that briefly.
Because
how that impact you?
Well, because he talks about, almost to your point too, of like the Alex Hormozis and people like that, where it's like you look at them and go, man, they're just, they sit in front of the camera and they just got it. And it's like, yeah, but they've spent hours and hours on Zooms or lives or stages or whatever to get to this point. And so, when I think about even stuff like this that we're doing, to me, this is part of our reach and reputation. How many people can we reach with this information, or who's maybe going through the same things that we are, having, the same limiting beliefs they're trying to overcome, or maybe struggling to start a new business, or who they're around or whatever. And it's like, okay, if we're going through this, most likely someone else is too. And so how can we extend this education or support, if you will? Well, also, to me, it's building our reputation as well, of like, we're setting the standard of this is who we are. And so, yeah.
I actually love that. That's very well said. I think that kind of goes back to like overcoming those limiting beliefs of like self-sabotage again. Like, hey, okay, like it might take 100, it may take 150, whatever it is, but we're here for the long haul. We're here to kind of keep picking away that, keep pushing. So no, that's a great word.
And I don't think I don't recall the segment. Well, I should say that phrase that you're discussing, but I know it stuck out to me what he was talking about of your goals and having it down, the specificity with it to describe it the same way you would describe as your current situation.
Yes, that's, I think I wrote that down somewhere, so we're going to come back to that one for sure. Let me see. Let's see what this one is.
It's a wallpaper on my laptop. I'm in the office.
Vision
I made
boards.
this decision with Sam, and it occurred to me, everything on that vision board was on the other side of me deciding to invest in my reach and reputation. Everything. So back to your question, Michael, 1,000 days. Could I dedicate 1,000 days consistently every day, putting out content, never miss a day, never miss? Oh yeah, I can do that. How about the rest of my life? How about the rest of my fucking life? I will show up. Hold me to it. Watch me. I will never miss.
Wow.
Yeah, that's ultimate commitment. And you know what? I believe it. It's one of those, like, as he talks, I'm like, yeah, I believe he's right.
Yeah.
So question for you. Can you explain what your future looks like? The same level of detail that you can explain how things are today. That was one of his questions.
No.
Yeah, honestly, and that was good because I felt like
No.
I need more clarity on that too.
Yeah, I've been really diving deep on and that's why I said this just really, I mean, hit home for numerous reasons. Obviously, there's different gems and insights in here, but I think I've really been taking a personal journey lately to dive into. I know I'm like, I can't focus. Um, but no, I've been taking this dive into figuring out what some of maybe my goals or dreams are. And, people talk about that. Like, can you visualize it? Can you picture what does it look like? Where are you at? Who are you with? What does it smell like? What do you
Yeah.
see? And just what are you feeling in those moments? And they talk about that visualization to where if you can picture it, now you have something to go chase after. And so, yeah, the answer right now would be no, but I think I'm getting closer to that every single day.
Yeah, and I feel like I know that's the exercise I need to do. Like it might be at 9, 10 o'clock at night
It takes
with
time, I feel like.
lights turned off, just sitting there in your thoughts. But I feel like
Mhm.
that's a good exercise before the end of the year. I need to
Yeah,
sit down and kind of map that out. And I feel like I need to make that on my to-do list. Sit
yeah,
down for 15, 20 minutes, maybe in a different environment. We talked about that last time. Maybe switching up your
absolutely.
environment, which switches up your, creativity.
Yes,
So,
that's what I think I
uh,
need. I had someone mention that to me the other day. Actually, it was Marlon. So Mindset Marlon, if anybody knows him. But we were talking about this, and I was like, I'm getting this kind of similar advice. So I know there's something to it, but I'm like, I just can't seem to kind of cross that threshold, if you will. But he
mhm.
said something that stuck out to me, and you just mentioned creativity. And I feel like for me, it's going to come down to how do I break down these walls that maybe have been put up or tap into the creative side to be able to dream again, because it's like when you're a kid,
Mm,
you create everything, you have all
yeah.
these, I'm going to go do this, and there's no limits. And it's like, it kind of made me realize, hey, yeah, part of me is quite analytical or whatnot with my personality, but surely at some point I was able to do that. So it's like, okay, we probably have a lot built up of whether somebody told you couldn't, or you felt like you failed at something had happened along the way that I'm like, I probably need to bust down some of these barriers to allow myself that creativity to really just kind of explore, like, what do we want to do here? Like, where are we headed?
That's so good because, yeah, it really is just it's self barriers, and we're allowing other things to kind of come in our way, distractions and whatnot. So let's hit on
Absolutely.
this portion right here.
Yep.
If you don't have a clarity around the target you want to hit, then unfortunately any road will get you to a destination and it will take you 10 times longer. So 100% clarity about what you want to create. Be specific. What if I'm wrong? Guess what? It's okay. As long as you're specific, as long as you have a North Star, you're allowed to recorrect. Plane takes off from New York to LA. Guess what? It is off track 98% of the time. Do you guys know that? That plane
No.
you're flying in that can almost call to the minute the time that it lands in that other city is off course 98% of the time. But because the pilot has clarity and a GPS point, it can get there with an accuracy of minutes.
Hmm. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. That was actually one of the coolest things I thought I heard. Was like that's such a great analogy. Like that it's
Yeah,
off track 90% of the time. Like,
right, where you're like, we're lost all the time and we still get there.
but we still get there, right? Like that's
On
such a great analogy, and on time, yeah, and if not early, right?
Right. That's wild.
So I felt like it was just such a great analogy to like life. It was like, sometimes it might be
Yeah.
off course a little bit. Sometimes it might not be exactly what you think it's going to be. But
Yes.
at the end of the day, like you can get there and you will get there. You just got to
Mhm.
keep walking. You just got to keep moving. You just got to keep pressing forward.
Yeah.
And yes, it's, that sounds like rah, 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 but it's so true. Like, these
Yeah.
guys have been doing this, these guys have been in this space for years and been operating this kind of, these subjects and talking about some of this stuff for years. We're
Absolutely.
just now hearing it, so it seems new to us, but they've been putting the reps in, they've been putting the time, they've been off course. This was just really good. I just really like this portion right here. What are your thoughts on it?
No, I agree. I really liked that analogy because I had the same thoughts of like, holy cow, are they really off that much? And it's like, yeah, but you don't think twice about people book their flight. You know what time you're going to get there. You think people are traveling for work or different things, that it has to be in line. And not to say that sometimes things don't happen, that you're late or have to switch. Obviously, we all know travel plans can be switched, but Yeah, I thought that was a great analogy to like, hey, I think it's almost the when you see like the graphs and it's like, hey, it's not a linear, we go from point A to point B. It's gonna have some ups and downs. And I feel like this kind of was a different way to look at that of like, hey, it's okay if it's not as direct as you want it to be, or a direct flight, if you will, but you're gonna get there. Just keep focusing on that North Star and you can absolutely do it. Unmute.
Yeah, sorry. So my question for you, as we kind of bring this thing full circle
Yeah.
today, I guess what were your biggest takeaways, or what are some of the things that, hey, I need to share this with this person, or I need to make sure I work on this, because I always feel like this type of material is always so good. This like it's almost like a mastermind. It's almost like a conference type of. Even though this was just a Q&A, but it kind of has that same type of feel. But
Yeah.
in that, I always like to share this with share with one person, or I always like to take away one specific thing. So what
Yeah.
would be your takeaways from something like that?
So I think I'd have a few, but I think definitely that flight analogy, just because I think it could resonate with a lot of people and it's an easy way to describe what you learned versus diving too deep into anything. But I also think I don't think we showed that part of the clip, but he talks about, I think right about the time we're talking about like the 1,000 days, that what's something you can do. And I feel like a lot of us we want the recipe. What are the ingredients? How much do you want? What's the work? What's the task list? Like, what do I have to do to get to where you are? And he referenced it of like, no, if you can just wake up tomorrow morning and reflect on how yesterday went and go, what things was I happy with? What did I miss? Was there anything I was ashamed of or upset by? Okay, and then how can I adapt and make today a little bit better? And just, he was like, if you just do that on repeat every single day, watch where you go in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah,
And so I think for me, that was huge because I do tend to like, what is the path or
yeah,
maybe I'm not specific enough, but I do know that, taking that time to just go, okay, we don't have to figure it all out in the same day, but what did we like about yesterday? And what's something that maybe we could change today? And then just keep doing that.
Do you have a gratitude journal?
I do now because I'm reading the magic. So we've been very,
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, that's one of my biggest takeaways. Is like, okay, I've been talking about it for a while. I need a
yeah,
gratitude, because you can get so lost in
yeah,
the weeds, right? And you can get lost on the journey and
yeah,
forget that you are on the journey. You can get lost in the journey and forget that you're on the journey.
absolutely.
That's what I have to say. The biggest takeaway. I mean, I love that analogy because that's everyone can relate to the airplane analogy. So I really love that one.
Yeah.
Um, But my biggest takeaway is like I need to be able to identify what the future looks like,
Mhm.
and in detail. I can have a North Star for sure, but I need more clarity in some of my things. I want to end with, he mentioned having 100% clarity, 100% belief, 100% of the time,
Yeah.
and that's going to be something I need to work on for sure.
Same. Yeah. I think these are good though too, right? Because I think that's why I said it was cool that we're doing, these discussions, if you will, because it brings things to light for us. Of like with this,
Yes.
to me, it kind of gave a different perspective, or maybe even almost action steps. Maybe not quite, but just it gives you another step to look inward. Okay, they offered this, and to remember, oh, okay, I don't have to have it all figured out today, but could I at least do this? Oh, would a
Yeah.
gratitude journal help to build this dream? Okay, well, let's do that.
You know what we need, and I know I'm saying this on pod. This is probably something I would probably say after pod. We need a notes. We need like a podcast notebook. So after each episode, we can notate 2 or 3 things, and then
Yes.
when we look back, we'll be able to say, "Hey, these are
Uh,
some of our
great
takeaways."
idea.
So we're gonna adopt that. So for anyone that listens in the future, if you ever see us with the notebook, just know this is where it started
Yeah,
after having 5 or 6 discussions. So
absolutely.
hey, I appreciate you being with me today. Been on dad
We're
duty. I got this little person here.
we're all for
Uh,
the special guests. Like you said, I'm like, this is part of the life we chose, of like we're
this is
welcoming to all the things that come with it.
absolutely so. All right, y'all. Well, appreciate it. We'll definitely chat soon.
Absolutely.
Later.